Erich Gottlieb Eliskases was born in Innsbruck, Österreich, Austria. He was an international master in 1950 and a grand master in 1952. By the time this was played, he was pretty well beyond his prime, but he was Austrian champion in 1929, Hungarian champion in 1934, German champion in 1938 and 1939. In 1939, as was the case with many chess players, he got stranded in South America following the outbreak of World War II, and many players stayed there for the Olympiad in Argentina, by the way. So he stayed there. He was first place at Sao Paulo in 1941 as well as 1947, first place here at Mar del Plata in 1948, first place at Punta del Este in 1951, first place at the 1951 South American Zonal, first place at Cordoba in 1959. So I say out of his prime, but still very, very much successful by the time this tournament played. This was not his best tournament, but Erich Eliskases is one of only 4 people to have beaten both Capablanca and Bobby Fischer. Can you name the other 3? Something fun to do. Who are the other 3? Anybody? You can probably guess the most likely one. If somebody were to put this question to me and I didn't already know, you can take an educated guess, and one should be pretty obvious. No, not Tal. Neither Tal nor Petrosian. You got to think in terms of longevity here. Remember, Capablanca, you had Steinitz, you had Lasker, and then you had Capablanca. So Capablanca was only the 3rd official world champion. So you got to think in terms of longevity here. No, not Botvinnik. Who was Bobby's arch rival? I'll give you a hint. The one that to me that would be most obvious is this guy. Anybody know? All right, I'll give you the answer. No, not Spassky. Spassky's a Johnny-come-lately. So remember, Capablanca was the 3rd world champion, so he played way back in the early 1900s. So you got to look at players whose careers spanned that, first of all, which excludes guys like Mikhail Tal and Tigran Petrosian and Boris Spassky. But who was Bobby's arch rival? You guys know this. This guy, no one Korchnoi. Bobby's arch rival was the one who said he'd rather come in last place. That's right. Tundra Mike's got it. He said in an interview, he said, I'd rather finish in last place with only 1 point, as long as that 1 point was against Fischer. Sammy Reshevsky is the first person that comes to my mind. The other 2 are not perhaps as obvious, but one was Dr. Max Hervé, although Fischer was very young in his exhibition match against Hervé. But Hervé defeated Bobby Fischer as well as Jose Raul Capablanca. And the other is Paul Keres, the Estonian great, who is often considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest player not to become world champion. All right, well, Erich Eliskases is in very good company, isn't he? Being one of only 4 people to have defeated both Jose Raul Capablanca and Bobby Fischer. So this game begins with e4, and of course that's no surprise to anyone watching this program. Pawn e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Rai Lopez. Morphy's defense is a6, Paul Morphy, and bishop a4 is the Columbus variation. Knight to f6, castle, bishop e7, the closed Spanish. Rook e1, pawn b5, bishop b3, pawn d6, pawn c3, kingside castles, pawn h3. Speaking of Paul Keres, this is Keres's variation. Knight a5, hitting the bishop, and that bishop comes to c2, of course. Now pawn c5, all seen 100,000 times before. d4, I may be speaking with some exaggeration there. Queen c7, Mikhail Chigorin's variation or defense. Queen's knight d2, knight back to the c6 square. D takes c5, d takes c5, Now the knight comes to f1, ready to jump on either e3 or g3. Here, Erich Eliskases played the rook to d8, hitting the queen. That's out of the book. The book move is to develop that last bishop to the e6 square, and that's going to be answered in the ECO by knight to e3. The queen's rook now comes to d8 and hits my queen, which goes to the e2 square, and then c4 will be played. Let's go back. In this game, the king's rook plays right away to the d8 square, and I'm playing queen to e2 in either case, aren't I? Here, knight h5 was played. More common is bishop e6, getting that final bishop out of its bed. But knight h5 from Erich. Here, pawn a4, rook b8, pawn takes the pawn, and pawn takes the pawn. Now g3 is played, scoring an inaccuracy, but it is the most frequently played move in this line. So, not sure what the bot has wrong with this. I guess it doesn't like leaving this hanging. Yeah, so what? Pawn g4 instead. That's what the bot's calling for. g3 is the most common move, though. Well, g6 was played here, and he really should move his knight back to the f6 square. That's marked inaccurate. You don't want to grab, well, you can grab it, but it's not as strong as just moving the knight back, I'm pretty sure. Play the knight back first, and then you're threatening to take, you're enabling the knight to come to g4, etc. I don't think you want to play this right away, because on knight to g5 now, you're going to have to probably trade this bishop off for this knight, and you're giving up a pretty active bishop for a pretty crummy knight. Well, actually, I think I'll take this knight here because it threatens here and here first. And this poor bishop, what's he going to do? He's got to sit there because you've got to get rid of the defender of the queen. And to be honest, where's this bishop going to go? So I guess I'm going to take that bishop and hit your rook. Boy, this gets worse and worse for black every second. And I can desperado here. This is what's really amazing. I can desperado, and this poor bishop is still up for grabs at any moment. As soon as you take it, I'm taking you. So this really looks grand for white. So bishop takes h3 is not the best bet. After g3, g6 was played. h4 here. Now finally bishop e6 comes to bear, and now finally this knight gets into a better position on e3, preventing the bishop that just came to e6, preventing him from coming to c4, which would then hit my queen. And you'll note that my queen would be in a bit of hot water, wouldn't he, if the bishop were on c4, hitting all these squares. Where would my queen go? Everything's hot. Queen would be trapped. So you have to prevent the bishop from coming to c4. So he plays pawn to c4 now. Knight to g5 here. Bishop takes the knight. Pawn takes the bishop. And now knight to the a5 square. Somewhat curious looking move. It is marked inaccurate. The only place he could be coming is here. Knight g4 from Bobby Fischer. Looking to come to one of these squares, no doubt. Not liked by the bot there either. The bot recommending that we take our share of the open file. Right now, it's owned completely by black. So play rook d1 and put the question to your opponent's rook. And of course, after takes, we could take either with the queen, the bishop, or the knight, I think. I get a star. What do these moves score? That gets a question mark. That gets an inaccuracy. Okay, coming back, knight g4 was played here. Bishop takes the knight and queen takes the bishop. And sure enough, that knight came to b3. I'm not sure you really want to invite white to capture your knight and double your pawns and isolate them. But that's what he played. I would rather, if you're trying to maneuver to this square, the c5 square, a safer route is knight b7, isn't it? That's the best move according to the annotator. Well, this move invites bishop takes the knight, and that's exactly what Bobby plays. C takes b3, leaving black with doubled isolated pawns. Pawns that are very easy to attack. I can put it in danger right away. Bobby first plays the bishop to e3. That makes sense. The bot calling for queen f3 for some reason. Not real clear on the purpose of queen f3. Rook a8 is played here. Speaking of taking one's share of the open file. It gets a question mark, but the obvious purpose is in response to bishop to e3. What's that threatening? It's threatening rook to a7, hitting the queen. So rook a8 to prevent such an idea. Now, I was actually considering just moving the queen off of that line. Just play queen c6. You could also perhaps move the queen later and get this knight to a better place, I would think. This knight might like to come to e6, for example. And on rook a7, then I'll play queen c6, right? Should be okay. The eval bar favoring white here, but it's close enough for a grandmaster to hold a draw, all things being equal from there. Anyway, rook a8, frowned upon by the annotator, and Bobby goes ahead and trades rooks on a8. Rook takes a8, takes a8, and finally rook d1, taking the open d file. Queen c6 now is played. Man, with this weak pawn here, you've got this rook on the open a file. Keep him busy, force him to play rook d2 by playing rook a2. You know, that hits this pawn. You can't let him make a pass pawn, so you have to tether your rook to that pawn. It says to play queen e2. Whoa. Queen e2? That seems strange. Can't I just take this pawn here? The bot recommending queen e2. I'm a little bit befuddled by that move. What am I missing? Why can't I just take this? Maybe it's because white won't take back. White won't take the queen. White will take the pawn on b5. Take here, maybe give check first. I think either move is winning. Look at the eval bar. Yeah, that's the problem. You don't want to take this, obviously, and then rook takes queen and black has a passed pawn. So you can take this pawn or you can give check first. Give check first. Yeah, get a star for that. Make a move here and then take the pawn. Probably doesn't matter. You probably can take the pawn right away. It's inaccurate. The bot's saying play rook d8 first. All right. Well, anyway, I would have played rook d2, but none of that matters because he didn't play rook a2. He played queen c6 here. And look at that eval bar creep up in white's favor. Well, rook d5 on f5. B4 is called for here, I think. You could give check first. I would think B4 is your only, well, I mean, not much left anymore. I think we have to try something here like a decoy and then maybe queen c4, but it really just groping now because white is in control, isn't he? I'll just double my queen and rook here. Okay, you can pick back up your pawn, but that's about it. My bishop can actually now hit your queen, and you can connect your rook and queen, and that's not pinned because the pawn defends. In fact, I'll play bishop a3, block the file, and discover an attack on your queen. And you have to move it again. Okay, back. B4 being called for. Well, that's what I was thinking. Actually, the bot calling for rook a1 check. But f5 played. Queen d1 is what he wanted to play anyway. You got this. You've got this. That lines up with the king. You also have potentially, now that my rook is defended, I can take the pawn because I no longer need my pawn to defend my rook. So there's a lot that I have available to me here with this queen d1 move. f4 hitting the bishop. It's irrelevant because g takes f4 and e takes f4. Don't play, by the way, don't play the capture here. This is not the best choice, even though the eval bar still, okay, came back in this direction, but it still favors white substantially. Well, black will have to block the diagonal, and then you get a queen trade. And I'm sure Bobby would be happy for that. Why? Because Bobby was the king of simplification, and then we could take this pawn. But don't play queen takes. The easiest is just take the pawn right away. He takes f4, and now queen takes b3, which of course threatens the discovered check, double check, followed by checkmate because this pawn forms a mating net. That's a real beauty. He played queen c4, but let's do a nothing move to show. Let's capture the bishop and show that this is checkmate here and there. Boom, beauty. Let's go back. So queen c4 had to be played, and queen takes queen, pawn takes queen, and we still get that aforementioned simplification with a rook bishop against rook knight, and that poor knight is poorly placed. Bishop d4, pawn f3, bishop back to e3, keeping the knight from coming to the f4 square. h6, pawn takes pawn, knight f6. More importantly, probably is to prevent rook d7. So he goes rook d6, king f7. Note rook a1 check is being called for here, but it's going to be answered by king h2. And if knight g4 check, we have king g3, knight takes the bishop, and pawn takes. Okay, we've got a lot of pathetic pawns, but we've got more of them. So after f2, king has to take king h7, and you get a clearly winning position for white. Let's go back. White's already clearly winning either way. King f7 was played, and Bobby, like I said, the master of simplification, he says, I'm just going to go ahead and take that with my rook. You can have my rook for your knight. I'm generous. And it's king rook versus king bishop, but there's check. That defends the promotion square, and the king can't get at the pawn to help. He's too slow. He can't come back around. And that was just genius by Bobby Fischer. Let's look at it again, this time in slow motion. Rook takes knight. And in slow motion replay, he wishes he could capture his own pawn. King g5 is played, and of course, h7, and the promotion square is defended. King f4, king h2, pawn g5. He goes ahead and promotes. Rook takes the queen, bishop takes the rook. Pawn g4, pawn e5, and of course black resigned the game. And Bobby Fischer scoring a 96.8 in this game, 2950 rating. Every single game, modern grandmasters. Don't tell me Bobby Fischer wasn't as good as people thought. In fact, he was probably better than people thought. Now that we have the technology that can assess the ratings of his individual games, it's being made very plain and evident that he was all that and more. So, by the way, you can see here, he's forced to play the king back. Okay, he can throw one move away with check, but I'm going to take with check, and you're forced to stop that pawn from promoting. But guess what? Check, you can't take this pawn. Your king can never leave this square, the square of the pawn. So if you come here, it's just over. You can't catch me, which means you'd have to come this away. And I get to come in here, and there goes your last passer. And I've just got too many pawns. Eventually, my king works over and gets rid of that one, and you can't stop everything. So he obviously saw that. He resigned the game, and Bobby Fischer really dominating in this event. And it only gets better from here. I'm telling you. Tremendous chess from Bobby Fischer, I have to say, and I know you agree. Chess dude guy, impressive stuff and a great opponent. Yeah, Erich Eliskases, truly one of the greats, probably an unsung hero.
Friday night we gather round, Daniel's here to break it down. Chessboard magic in the air, Fischer's moves we all will share. Coaches talking every play, teaching skills along the way. Feel the thrill with every game, Bobby's legacy remains the same. Fischer Friday, let's all cheer. Chess and wisdom by our ear. Champion spirit never gone. History lives in every pawn. Daniel's passion lights the stream, analyzing Fischer's dream. Queens and knights and castles too, every match a deja vu. Tactical genius on display, kings and bishops lead the way. Endgames full of flair and might, chessboard glowing in the night. Move by move we're drawn inside Fischer's world where legends ride. Strategy and brilliancy, lessons learned for you and me.
Every week, Fischer Friday right here on King's Bishop Teaches Chess. Got some other music in the works. Trying a few things out. Fischer Friday. Let's all cheer.
That loop we're drawn inside. Fischer's world where legends ride. Strategy and brilliancy. Lessons learned for you and me.
Oh, yeah. And we'll try some others out as time goes on. So I hope you enjoyed this portion of the coverage of Mar del Plata 1960, the 23rd Mar del Plata International Chess Tournament, Mar del Plata, Argentina. We'll close out by showing the cross table one more time. And we've shown 4. We've got 10 more games that we'll show. We'll try to do 3 or 4 every week. So with 10 more, it'll be a 3, 3, and a 4 is how we'll do it. And I sure do appreciate the support. So until next time, have a great day and play some great chess. Bye now.